where at times I'm wondering, what will I be talking about here on Viewpoints? And it doesn't take but a few moments to look around and observe what's taking place in the news and realize we've got a lot to talk about. As a matter of fact, today's program, pretty active, bringing you up to date very quickly here on Viewpoints on the talk station, FM 107 AM 1240. Joining us in just a moment, we're going to be chatting with Phil Law, of course, declared candidate for the 3rd Congressional District, about what he is anticipating related to the procedure for the election. We'll be chatting with others over the course of the next couple of weeks. We've got folks now looking to fill the position left vacant by the recent death of Congressman Walter Jones. So I'm going to start off this evening with Phil Law. We're going to also chat briefly about the events in Raleigh. As a matter of fact, according to the North Carolina Board of Elections, a Republican operative who last year rounded up votes for a GOP candidate running for Congress conducted an illegal and well-funded ballot harvesting operation, that according to North Carolina's elections director. And this is an important story, and it actually plays into the events possibly with the 3rd Congressional District as well. So we'll get to that in a moment. Following that, we're going to be chatting with Marjorie Dufek. She is the North Carolina coordinator for the Concord Coalition. It's related to the national debt. And then we'll wrap things up this evening with Jay Delancey, again, of the Voter Integrity Project. He will be in attendance at an event in New Bern tomorrow evening, and it's an issue that, well, he's sent me a note. Breaking news. So maybe it has to do with this issue of today's program associated with the 9th Congressional District. All right, you are, of course, listening to Viewpoints on the talk station, FM 107 AM 1240. The number's 252 area code 247-7282. That's 247-7282. And the toll-free number 800-818-2255 via email at viewpoints with an S, viewpointsradio@hotmail.com, and via Facebook at Viewpoints on the talk station. As I noted very quickly, do want to remind you about our sponsors for the afternoon. Floyd's 1921 restaurant located at 4th and Bridges Street in beautiful uptown Morehead City, as well as Floyd's 1921 restaurant located at 4th and Bridges Street in beautiful uptown Morehead City. As I mentioned a moment ago, Phil Law, a former candidate for the 3rd Congressional District and a recently declared candidate, joining us this evening. And with that, Phil, good afternoon. Thanks for taking the time to be with us, sir.
Good afternoon, Lockwood. Lovely to always be on with you.
Well, very kind. A lot of news happening. As a matter of fact, we'll be chatting with Jay Delancey a little later on in the program, and I think it has to do with the association of the 9th Congressional District race and the ongoing investigation there. But what I want to chat with you about today, Phil, is obviously early on declared candidate to fill the position formerly occupied by Representative Walter Jones. My question is, what do you know about the procedures, and have you had any conversations with the State Board of Elections, or for that matter, well, any of the election officials, even in your region?
Sure. So the first procedure that will have to happen, it will be the governor has to call for a special election. So that will kind of lay out the date of when it will be. Then there can be some deciding factors like, will it be a winner-take-all primary? When will the general election be? So we have a lot of variables in play right now. But first, we have to wait for the governor to call the special election, which I urge everyone in the 3rd District to call the governor and urge him to call the special election ASAP, because we have been without a representative for so long, let alone North Carolina without two, as you've stated before.
Right. It's a big issue, as a matter of fact. All right. With that, Phil Law with us this afternoon. Phil, the question is to the process of filling this position. Of course, it's going to be a basically a one-year race, because then you would turn right around and have to run for election again in 2020. Am I correct on that?
Right. So technically, there is a law that kind of limits some of the date time frame, which is the overseas and military ballots, which you have to allow 45 days. So, like, if we started today, that would kind of line us up with a May election, and then you have to do it again for a general. So we do have some limitations there. But like again, we can do this in an expedient manner. However, if we waited till the November municipal elections, then we would actually be refiling in December. So we'd hold office for maybe a month and then have to file again. So that's why I say I hope that we resolve this issue in an expedient manner.
Okay, that's very interesting. And I recognize we're talking to a candidate, and when I say that, not necessarily an official in the North Carolina Elections Board, but obviously, Phil, you've done your homework. You had to in anticipation of running for this race, this seat. So what would be the earliest that if the governor were to announce, say, Wednesday, and there's been some thoughts that the governor will delay to Wednesday till he hears a final conclusion from the North Carolina Board of Elections. And right now, by the way, as a result of the story I just read, well, it doesn't look good for a continuation of the results of the election last year. My question to you is, if the governor were to announce here shortly, what would be the time frame? Do you have any kind of clear indication of what that could be?
Well, I think that he would announce it, and the filing would start right away, especially if we're going to target the traditional May election time frame. But I just want to say that I've had a lot of questions about people asking me if I'm going to run for this special election. Since I announced for the 2020 race before Walter became very ill, I just want to let everyone know that without a doubt, I will be filing on the first day for this special election.
All right, and I apologize. I made the assumption right out of the gate, and no, clarity is very helpful. Phil Law with us this evening for a few more minutes. All right, Phil, let's talk here for a moment before we wrap it up. I am stunned, quite frankly, by the number, volume, and continuation of accolades for Congressman Jones, who was highly criticized by a variety of sources and other sources just ignored. Now, all of a sudden, it's a stunning revelation about the number of people who have shown their respect. Is it simply because, well, he died in office, or is this an indication that people secretly were admirers of the congressman?
Look, Congressman Walter Jones was a fine public servant and a good Christian man. But look, we've got a lot of problems here in the 3rd District.
Right.
And I tell you what, I'm uniquely qualified to handle these challenges as a new generation of leadership emerges. Look, as a Marine in Iraq, in combat up close, I've learned a lot of these hard lessons. As a businessman, I've learned even more of those. With my IT background, it gives me more insight for these emerging challenges.
Okay.
Look, the middle class in this country is being destroyed. The problems are more than we can talk about today. The economic structure is not working for the middle class. The healthcare crisis is hurting everyone with higher costs and premiums, and the VA crisis for the veterans has to be addressed.
All right. Well, I'll tell you
Walter was a champion for the veterans, and we will continue that service.
Okay. So what I have just heard from you, and by the way, I want to compliment you for straightening me out in a very casual way. Good job, Phil. I owe you on that one. So in essence, your anticipation is now that you will, once the filing opens, you will seek the, shall we call it the interim race for the 3rd Congressional District. I'll call that interim in a sense.
It's going to be an exciting one. You know, the last kind of special, that June one we had in 2016, I think there were 17 candidates in the 13th district in the Republican primary. So I expect a similar number out here. There's a lot of folks that see an opportunity, but I tell you what, I'm not a fair weather warrior. I will fight for you when it's easy and when it's hard.
All right. Phil Law with us. Thank you very much, Phil. I appreciate that. You've shared with us information. And I also think it's very important what you just pointed out about the need for speed in the relationship of filling this vacant office. Phil Law with us this evening. Phil, stay with me. I'll chat with you briefly off air, but thank you very much for being with us. Viewpoints on the talk station, FM 107 AM 1240. Speaking of Congressman Jones, Marjorie Dufek will be joining us, the Concord Coalition. The topic, a topic that really bothered the late Congressman Walter Jones, national debt. Stay with us here on Viewpoints.